let's celebrate a local kid. With the 31st pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs have selected Felix Anudike-Uzomah, the edge rusher out of Kansas City, to the Kansas City Chiefs. A local kid gets to be the pick to close out the first round of the NFL Draft. Edge rusher Felix Anudike-Uzomah is the first pick in the first round for the Kansas City Chiefs. Initial thoughts, Matty Lane. What do we think?
Up and down. I like the player. I like the pass rush potential. I think he played out of position a lot at Kansas State, and that really muddies up his projection because a lot of his rush plan seems very unfinished. It's not clean. There's a lot of work there. But, man, if he does not play the game of football in a way Steve Spagnuolo and the team is going to like, he's going to come in there. He's going to play the run hard. They've reduced him down a lot to play on the interior. He has the potential athleticism to be a pass rusher. I believe I comped him into a medium fit because he was a little bit lighter than what the Chiefs normally would go for, but he fit a lot of the other metrics. And actually, I remember my comp for him, and this one wasn't an athletic comp at all because the athletic comp doesn't match whatsoever. But Melvin Ingram, he plays football like Melvin Ingram in the way he slips blocks and uses his body control to weave in and out around guys. That's another Chiefs fan should remember him from just a couple years ago.
This is a Matty guy.
It was
a
Matty
guy in the KCSN draft guide here. I mean, long arms, just fearless, tenacious, good motor. All the hallmarks that we look for in a Steve Spagnuolo defensive end. Listen, all those other defensive ends go off the board. Felix Anudike-Uzomah is the next tier down from that. I think that he's just as much right to the top of that tier as anybody else.
Yeah, he probably belongs on the tier of defensive ends that are left and stuff. And he probably has the most potential out of those guys. Right. I believe he's a younger player. He's only coming out here as a junior.
He's 21 right now.
He just turned 21 earlier this year.
So weird! Another 21-year-old being drafted by Brett Veach.
He's a little bit younger. He was played out of position at Kansas State because they play one of those awkward little 3-3-5 type Big 12 defenses. So I think there's a lot of potential there to grow for him. So I 100% understand the pick there.
Yeah, I absolutely do as well. That's going to be another versatile piece that Steve Spagnuolo can put on the edge, trust him to defend the run, and has some higher pass rush upside. It makes a lot of sense. Clark Hunt's bringing the trophy.
Clark Hunt has brought the trophy out.
Wow.
Of course he is.
They were never moving off this pick. Never moving off this pick.
It wasn't happening. Clark needed this opportunity here. But yeah, Felix Anudike-Uzomah is local. I don't know if you've known that, but he's from Kansas City, Missouri, baby.
You guys want to know something fun? On my flight here this morning, I was sitting next to somebody that is a good friend of Felix Anudike-Uzomah's, and he was going to his personal draft party for this. So we just talked a little bit about him and how they knew each other and stuff. So that was just an interesting little pick. Here we got the bar at the pizza bar.
You can hear the bar. They're celebrating.
They are happy here.
This is Felix Anudike-Uzomah played at Lee's Summit High School. He turned 21 years old, January 24th, 2002. He is a young player. He's barely 21. Mm-hmm. He will be 21 all the way into most of the playoffs. For which he will be participating. Back-to-back seasons, the Kansas City Chiefs have selected edge rushers, continuing to just build solid players on their front. I don't think this is a bad move. I think this is a good move. I think this is a continually good business to take a high positional value player that makes some sense. You talked about the medium fit, but that ability to play the run.
Oh, yeah.
It's there. It's already there, and it's advanced.
Same conversation as Nolan Smith, only now we got to the length threshold that Steve Spagnuolo likes with 33.5-inch arms. But here's something more. Sub 7-second 3-cone. That's good.
That is translatable to pass rush production. Yes.
10-foot or a 10-4 broad jump.
Yeah.
Translates to pass rush success rate. You want to find pass rushers that are good at the broad jump and are good at the 3-cone. Felix Anudike-Uzomah, good at both. So there's why you have a high-end pass rush profile in him, and then you take that, you translate it out and say, he didn't get used at his best position at Kansas State, and he was still super productive. I get it. It makes a ton of sense.
And I talked about making the CBAT translatable stuff in kind of the mold of Justice Mosqueda's force rushers. that 3-cone, that explosion, those were big indicators that he was looking down the road there to try and identify guys that would be highly productive pass rushers. That's why we know that. That's why we see that. He certainly had the production. He's got those traits. Ceiling's high for this guy.
Yeah.
It really is.
No, it is. I just wish I do wish we had a little bit more tape to see him rushing out wide, because it's still a little questionable, right? We don't know what it looks like. The traits should transition, but when we're talking about 5 snaps a game where he's getting to rush from out wide, and when 2 of those, are dealing with a chipping tight end or a running back, there's such a little sample size to see his true high side rush.
Well, and with all that considered, we still put him in the top 30 of the KCSN draft guide rankings. He was the 27th rated player for us in the KCSN draft guide. And you're right. I don't want to say, it's not that K-State did a disservice to him. They had to win football games.
Oh, yeah.
But in the best interest of Felix Anudike-Uzomah's opportunities to develop for the next level, you would have liked to see him get rushed from outside that tackle a little bit more. Yeah. But I love it. I love it. I think it's a great pick.
And see, I want to kind of reframe this. We're talking about how he's used and all of that. The man had 11 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles on last year when we were looking at all of that. That still matters. So you're trying to look at an upside guy. You were trying to look at production. You're trying to look at how that translates. Worst case scenario, he can do some of the things that you are expecting out of him, even from that kind of interior alignment a little bit more. Now you move him outside. You give him to same reason that we loved, a guy like Miles Murphy.
Oh, look I'm seeing the draft party right now for Felix, the local stuff in
That
Kansas
is
City going
awesome.
wild. That is nice.
That is awesome.
You want me to blow your mind real quick? You read off his stats, so you know what he did last year? 11 sacks, 14.5 tackles for loss, and 6 forced fumbles.
I believe he was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year in 2021.
Yes, he was.
Well, and he was this year, was he not?
No, he was not this year, I don't believe.
I believe he beat Tyree Wilson out.
We are going to talk about Felix Anudike-Uzomah, break down the Chiefs' first-round pick right after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Thank you all for hanging out with us. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. The Kansas City Chiefs stuck at 31. They made a selection. They beefed up their defensive line. They added another edge rusher in Felix Anudike-Uzomah, the local product, the KC kid, gets selected in KC.
It's got to be a good feeling.
So cool.
As they're celebrating a Super Bowl title. What a special moment.
What a run.
Another edge rusher into the mix.
I like the edge rusher profile here because so he still fits Steve Spagnuolo what he kind of likes. Just the arm length, the physicality, the way he plays the run. But he very clearly has more bend, more flexibility, more explosion than some of the other picks. He is a much speedier rusher than a lot of the other Steve Spagnuolo type of defensive ends. So I think he fits in well. He's going to provide some actual speed rush, and that's something the Chiefs really have struggled. They had to use Frank Clark as their speed rusher, right? And granted, that's about all he had down the stretch. I think his elbows are blown out, but they had to use him as their speed rusher, and that's not ideal at this point of his career. So Felix can take that role on right away. So from a fit-wise, he's a Steve Spagnuolo type guy, but he also has a very specific role as a pass rusher.
Absolutely. And I think because of the way he's going to play the run, because of the way he can play the pass, this is a 3-down defensive end.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. He doesn't have a ton of starting experience, and yet he still has a lot of polish, a lot more than you would expect from some of these other guys in the draft. I mean, if you were a Kansas City Chiefs fan and you're sitting there and you're watching some of the defensive ends go off the board and you're looking at Miles Murphy going off the board, it's, oh, man, wish we had that guy, with good burst, good, bend and things like that with Miles Murphy. Felix Anudike-Uzomah also has a lot of those sorts of traits that he can lean on and become a guy there. You are trusting that a guy like Joe Cullen can develop that player and turn him into a quality 3-down guy. But he's got the base level already in-house. He's got the ability to get on the field on early downs and on late downs.
Seeing a little bend right there.
Absolutely. He can do a lot of stuff and plays with the kind of tenacity that's going to add to that front. It's a good pick.
Yeah, I love it. And the background's unique. Now, obviously, maybe you would hope to be a little bit more opportunity to develop outside that tackle, but let's not diminish playing reduced into a 4-eye, the value that can actually present. for him, because like I think that forces him to play the run a little bit differently and kind of develop and learn to play the run a little bit more than he has. And again, that tends to be a requirement of Steve Spagnuolo. So like, there's a lot of talk about Will McDonald that seemed kind of ridiculous because he would be the third heaviest linebacker, off-ball linebacker on this football team. But Felix Anudike-Uzomah is kind of the best of both worlds, because you're right, he does have a little bit more juice up that arc, but he plays the run well. And this guy makes a lot more sense, even if you're going and deviating away slightly. This is a more slight deviation away from some of the Steve Spagnuolo preferences. Still a pretty good fit. Obviously, because they took him.
Yeah, we're a 5-pound deviation away from him being essentially a perfect fit, right? Yeah. He weighed in at 255 pounds. So, he goes and eats one good round of barbecue. He's all of a sudden now a perfect fit for Steve Spagnuolo. He hits the height, the weight, and the arm length. So he's a good fit. And then the way they played him as that reduced defensive end, playing as a 5-tech or a 4-eye. So, he fits all the marks that we're saying here. We've talked about his pass rushing upside. I think he pairs in well with what kind of the way the Chiefs defense structure is starting to shape up now. They get that speed. They get that explosive edge rusher off the side. You pair with Chris Jones creating havoc in the middle, Karlaftis's, Mike Dana's pocket pushing ability. Maybe they still bring back a Dunlap or somebody or a Frank Clark or someone like that.
And you've got a Minihue in the mix too.
Yeah.
I mean,
D-line's looking pretty good.
You talk about a minute. This is what I want to go with. Talk about Brett Veach, talk about Omenihu kicking inside.
Yep.
Felix Anudike-Uzomah is not kicking inside to rush. I think
Not
he's
as much.
rushing. I think he's probably rushing from the edge more than some of these other guys. I think he's the guy that's running the arc next to Chris Jones, Charles Omenihu. That's a George Karlaftis. That's a fun little group. That dog will hunt.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the part, when we were talking about some of these other guys and that went in the first round, specifically Will McDonald, it's like you're not seeing him beat up on offensive tackles that he should beat up on. Guess who did? Felix Anudike-Uzomah showed up. He absolutely obliterated bad offensive tackles. He made them look bad. And he played well against good offensive tackles as well.
Besides Anton.
Again, an elite mover there. But
and playing as a 4.
And playing a little out of position, too.
Correct. And a round one offensive tackle.
And against a weird offense. So, I don't say that entirely as a negative. Just, that game I think a lot of people will find their way to seeing. And, you just don't want to pay too much attention to the Anton beating him up in that particular game.
That one right there, where he's coming off the edge, that is a true kind of outside rush there and ability to bend around it.
And, I know Alabama throttled K-State in that bowl game, but later in the game, he forced, I think, back-to-back holds out of Tyler Steen, who a lot of people really like as a, mid-round tackle or guard. He forced almost immediate, outside 2 holds back-to-back in, I believe, the second half. So there is clearly some outside rush potential there that he hasn't fully unlocked based on where they played him.
We're going to continue to monitor to see if we can get some quotes from Andy Reid or from Brett Veach about the selection of Felix Anudike-Uzomah. This story is incredible.
It is.
There's obviously a couple players that are local that you said, oh, man, wouldn't that be cool if a KC kid got drafted in the first round. Tommy Adebawore was one of those guys. Felix Anudike-Uzomah was the other. So a kid in KC gets to go to his hometown, the last pick in the draft, 3 Super Bowl trophies behind the owner while he's making the pick. That's just
what a flex, man.
What a flex and what a moment. What a moment for that kid, the newest Kansas City Chief.
Now, here's the fun part. I don't know that there was any tie to FAU throughout all these mock drafts, throughout everybody making this. Once again, we are in
not
a
recently,
scenario.
at least.
Not recently.
I think they met with him in the combine.
They did. I mean, they met with several people at the combine.
Yeah.
We are just now to the point where a guy like FAU ends up coming to the Chiefs, not on a lot of people's radars, but it still makes sense for what the Chiefs do on their defensive line. So Chiefs, once again, do a pretty good job of keeping all that quiet leading up to the draft, making sure that they still get a guy that they like.
Similar to years past, some people had the position right for a long time now,
but
didn't really have the right players. So that's been a trend that's been sticking pretty true for the Chiefs the past couple of years. National media people are finding the position they're in on, but not finding the correct player, and it seems like we went that route again.
Yeah, there was a lot of connection to the edge position.
Will McDonald
was getting Keon White was getting some Miles Murphy. Yep. So there were definitely some people that were paying attention to the edge position for them. One thing I'm very curious, probably one of the most things I'm most curious about with this selection is Derek Notty's wearing number 91 for the Chiefs. I don't know. Like, where are we going with this one? Is it 51? We're gonna have to wait to find out.
Mike Dana's wearing 51.
Oh, that's Mike Dana's wearing 51.
There's a lot of number options. We don't need to go too much farther into that. We don't need to go too much farther into it right now. There's a lot of number.
I think that's
Put
the
him
most
at
pressing question.
Put him at linebacker, go single digit.
I was going to say, you gave him Melvin Ingram comp. I would not mind seeing him wear the number 8. I'm just saying.
9's open.
8 goes to Ross, right?
Hey, Justin Ross is number 8.
Locked in the roster.
He can wear 9. Trim the 1 off of that. You can wear the 9.
Yeah, 9's good.
I like that.
Listen to the linebacker, go to single digit. It's a move.
Thanks to our partners, Miller Lite, for their continued support of the KCSN draft content. They've been an absolutely outstanding partner to work with. They've been a huge help. So a big shout out to all of our people at Miller Lite for working with us there. The Chiefs have taken edge rusher Felix Anudike-Uzomah. What a special moment for that kid. So let's maybe just a quick little thought. Grade it. Let's kind of grade it here, I guess. I was going to ask like what your feelings are about just the overall pick. Like, I like the player a lot. Let's compare it to maybe what was on the board for you, your preferences. We'll start with Craig.
Okay.
Because Matty looks like he's thinking too hard.
I mean, I would look at this pick. I was on board with taking a corner. I think that the best player available in my mind was still at the cornerback position. So I would have been on board with taking a corner there, making a strength a strength. But to Matty's point, you got 7th-round guys that are contributing. You've got guys that you are relying on that are a little bit cheaper asset-wise. So maybe not making that cornerback pick makes some sense. So you move down the line. Next guy on there, you're maybe looking at Michael Mayer, maybe looking at Brian Branch, or you're maybe looking at an FAU. All of those, if I'm looking at those positions, edge is clearly, from a positional value standpoint, the most important of all of those. And the most expensive of all of those when they hit. So from that perspective, I give it a strong, let's call it a B+ for that, because I do feel like positional value is good with there. I like the ceiling of it. It's just, B+.
It's a little difficult for me to separate the value that the teams were getting between pick 20 and 30. I thought the board looked really good there for a while, and the Chiefs were unable to capitalize on that, right? So that haunts me a little bit. I had FAU pretty comfortably as a 2nd-round guy. I was torn between early 2nd and late 2nd with him. He ended up on my horizontal board as an early 2nd, but I mean, he was barely hanging in there. So I think he went a little earlier than I would have preferred to take him, just because I do think there is a few more questions with how his game will translate to the NFL. So the value's okay, not great. It's just okay. The position matters, but I don't know if the Chiefs for the first time in years are screaming for a need. I think they have 2 starters and a quality backup with Dana. Not that they couldn't use more defensive ends, but just that they weren't screaming for a need there, and the value was good, not great. And then you cut away some of the better values at corner or that were having under the draft. I'm going with a B- with it, and I grade harshly. I think a C is a perfectly valued grade. Yeah. So this is a little plus value because of the position of need and the upside, but I definitely think they could have done a lot better had they moved around a little bit more, or even probably gone with one of those corners.
Yeah, the move up, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, you don't know how it played out.
You don't have great visibility on what was actually available to move up and when they would have been willing to move up and all that stuff. I'm going to give it a solid B+ as well. B+. I'm going to go to a B+ though. Positional value, I think, matters in a big way. And when you're down here at the bottom of the draft, I think this is more than a worthy swing at the edge position. So I like the addition of Felix Anudike-Uzomah. We're gonna have plenty more time to be breaking this down over the next couple weeks. I'm sure you'll be getting some breakdowns on the KCSN Substack. But Felix Anudike-Uzomah, pick 31, a KC kid to the KC Chiefs.